Hey there, Nominators. It's Geek Boy, and I'm coming to you live from the ultra secret, secure, and socially distant fan cave located in parts unknown right here in the 918. I want to welcome everyone to our latest episode of This Fantastic Week, a live program where we discuss, digest, ruminate, and pontificate on the biggest genre and fandom news stories from the past week. I want to welcome all and thank all the brave souls who tuned in for tonight's broadcast. From the looks of things, we're already off to a better start than we were last time. So I think we've got that going for us tonight. We certainly hope that everyone enjoys tonight's show. And as always, we want all of your comments, even if you're watching after the fact. We'll do our best to respond. Looks like we've already got the B5 Babe and the Wonder Midget in the house tonight.
So Bruce Star's here as well.
Who's it? I'm sorry, who's here?
Bruce Star.
Bruce Star.
In the house.
Oh, I just saw Bruce Star's in his house. So
Bruce Star's in the house.
That's what I'm talking about. You know, I knew that thing would come in handy for something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you guys like what you see, please leave a like and share this video. Share it all around the interwebs, all around the book faces. Also, check your settings and make sure you're set up to get notified when we go live so that you don't want to miss any of our ever-growing blocks of programming, some of which we're going to discuss here in just a few moments. Also, if you're so inclined, please jump over to our YouTube page and like and subscribe to it as well. I say that because we are going to be moving our primary focus over there in the coming months. We're not sure when. We haven't made a decision on that, but eventually that will be the place to catch our live content, with the exception of what we do on Friday night. So with all that said, I want to introduce my fantastic, see what I did there, my co-host, my fantastic co-host for this evening. It is week 3 with a full house. I mean, if I was counting cards, I couldn't do any better than this. And neither could you folks. Neither could you. I'm just going to tell you that. For those of you that tuned in, you're in for a special treat. First up on the mic, he's the producer. He's in the producer seat, as always. He's the Mozart of Microsoft, the desktop Dr. Feelgood, and just recently, the fully ordained high priest of the high tech. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentlemen of all species and races from the 47 known galaxies. It is the Reverend IT Geek in the chat tonight. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Just like every night I can get in here, and it's always a great time, and we always have great content. I love talking with you guys and everybody that joins in. The house is growing. We got Courtney who just joined in. Welcome, Courtney. So glad you're here.
Nathan Haddix is here tonight.
All right, Nathan. Yes, I love it, sir. Man, we're having a great show. We may need to end on a high note right now. I mean,
I know we need to stop before we mess the show up.
I know. So, but no, thanks for having me again, as usual. Always looking forward to it.
All right, great, outstanding. Next up, our second co-host. He is second in introduction only, by the way. He is the combo move kingpin, the drone camera Dolomite, the gamer with the golden throat. That's right, folks. The magnificent Mr. Goldar is in the house tonight, bringing his unique perspective and brand of excellence. Welcome, sir.
All right. Thanks for having me out. It's a pleasure to be here. Always enjoy chatting with you guys as well. And ready to have a good show tonight.
All right. So now, hey, I looked. I know you've been playing. Hey, I think we're up at episode 18 of that little fancy block of programming you're doing for us. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so I'm playing God of War on Fanboys Nightcrawlers, which I host every late Saturday night. I post a new episode of the game that I'm playing, and just like Geek Boy was saying, I'm on episode 18 of God of War, the 2018 version. And I believe we're in the area where Atreus has become sick. So Kratos must go on a journey to find special ingredients to help him recover. But in doing so, he has to unearth some ancient weapons that were from his past, his bloody past, I should say.
Oh boy.
I've actually recorded all the way up through episode 26. So I just need to edit and get started scheduling many of those, but we're going to keep them coming. We're getting close to the end of the game. I've actually unlocked a side quest enemy that's probably going to be tougher than the main enemy at the end of the game. So I'm probably going to post.
Why would you do that?
Well, you get special armor if you defeat her. Is that
one of the wingins, the harpies?
Oh, the Valkyries.
The Valkyries, sorry. Yeah.
So there's you have to fight 8 Valkyries, I believe, before you unlock the Queen. But then when you fight the Valkyrie Queen, you basically just get your ass handed to you for a solid
and over and
Oh,
over again.
and over again, because
Yep.
she has all the abilities of all the other Valkyries that you fought. So
Mhm.
she just cycles through them. So you just have to deal with that. And at this point in the game, I don't think my armor in axe or even my other weapons are strong enough to really even do a whole lot of damage. So I'm just kind of chipping away at her very slowly while she chips away at me pretty heavily.
Yes. Yeah. I tried to. So the first time I ever played that, I actually went in there a little too soon, and yeah, it was a bloodbath. I mean, like, yes, yeah, literally. I literally had to go back to a previous save point to get out of there because I was stupid and did the save point as soon as I got in the room, and it kept just reloading me back in that room every time. I'm like,
no.
and so yeah, so that was not good, not good. But I'm glad Goldar's a lot smarter than me on these gameplays. So
Yeah. Courtney says ciao. And Wonder Midget calls out Goldar, hashtag God of War, and that we get a special cup when you kick the queen's ass.
All right.
So with that, so again, folks, that'll drop this weekend, and it's going to be mucho exciting. Probably when we get to around episode 20, we're going to be watching Goldar get his ass handed to him by the Valkyrie. So our third illustrious co-host this evening, he's actually off-site. He is traveling on the road. He's in on assignment in Washington, D.C., as you can see.
Right.
He is
I believe he was searching for Decepticons, wasn't he?
Yes. Previously today, he was searching for Decepticons at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. I'll have him talk about that if you'd like. Anyway, but most importantly, folks, he is the motion graphic headmaster, the hardest working fan in show business, and the commander of the 918 Northern Command Post. Mr. Narwhal is with us tonight.
Hey, everybody. Mr. Narwhal here on location in sunny Washington, D.C., and it is hot here. Let me tell you, I live up in Minnesota where, the temperatures stay at a nice, comfortable, like 34, 35 degrees, most of the year. But up here, it is so hot, the politicians are taking off their clothes and they're not going to jail. That's
Oh, wow.
how hot it is.
Let's be honest, they probably would never go to jail. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably true. That's probably true. But yeah, I decided to get out of town and do a little mini break up here in Washington, D.C. to go check out the Smithsonian Institute. And I've seen a few interesting things up here. Checked out the big Air and Space Museum. Got to take a peek at a few relics from our ancient and somewhat recent past over at the American History Museum.
Oh, nice.
In fact, I got to get some time looking at one of Bob Ross's paintings and Fozzie the Bear, the original Fozzie the Bear Muppet. So that was interesting. But even though I am out and about in our nation's capital, I have not forgotten our illustrious viewers that I know love our new block of programming called Fanurism Flicks.
Yes.
And
we have a new one of those coming up?
We do have a new one of these coming up, and it is it's not exactly a kung fu movie, but it definitely has quite a bit of martial arts action. It's a movie from 1992 called Honor and Glory, starring a woman named Cynthia Rothrock.
Cynthia Rothrock, yes. Man, she's awesome.
But the bigger thing about this movie is who the director is. Really? It's a person named Godfrey Ho. Now, if you don't recognize that name,
I do not.
so let me put it to you this way: Godfrey Ho is to Roger Corman as Roger Corman is to Steven Spielberg. That's the level of technical expertise and filmmaker panache that we're talking about in terms of how well they craft their art.
I see.
We will probably be featuring more than one of Godfrey Ho's works of art. So here's the thing with Godfrey Ho. Rarely does he ever actually direct a movie under his own name.
Okay.
If you go out to IMDb
Uh-huh.
and you look to see, Godfrey Hell, and then it lists how many names he's actually used in the industry, the man has released films under 50 different names.
Holy hell.
Yeah, well, like I said, his films tend to be fairly legendary for their let's call it a liberal interpretation of filmmaking art. Luckily, this one that we're featuring this week is actually one of his best films. It's called Honor and Glory. I believe we have a trailer there, Reverend. Let's take a look at it.
All right, here it comes.
They are a family united against a common enemy.
This is the biggest banking scandal in history.
But I will be the man that history remembers.
They are a family torn apart from within.
You don't know anything about me.
We don't know the whole story.
But there is more to Jason Slade than any of them realize.
The White House today continued to downplay rumors that a Soviet warhead detonator is missing.
Now, forces beyond their control will change their lives forever.
There's plenty of money out there. There's only one trigger, and I'm gonna get it. The only thing I need to swear by is the $3 billion that you're gonna pay me on delivery. If you get it for me, I'll pay you $5 million. Now, when can you get the trigger?
Why hesitate? Do you still intend to sell? Don't make me wait too long.
Jason Slade was tricked by the CIA. But the guy in charge is your father.
Come on, get up!
Cynthia Rothrock, Donna Jason, Honor and Glory.
And there is Honor and Glory. Sorry, we had a little bit of audio in the beginning, but I got that worked out pretty quick. So,
For those that don't know, if we have any younger viewers, Cynthia Rothrock is what Gina Carano is way past what Cynthia Rothrock would have been, but she was basically an 80s Gina Carano, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. She was the Van Damme of the 80s. Yeah, she was Jean-Claude Van Damme of the the queen of that. So I mean,
she was in so many low budget movies that all had the standard kind of MO of someone's doing something, I have to go kick them.
Yeah.
Yes.
For a second there, I thought I saw. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I
was going to say, for a second there, I thought I saw Eddie Murphy do a roundhouse kick on somebody. I was like, is that Eddie Murphy? What?
The filmmakers would be happy if you thought that. Yes, let's just say there are definite influences and definite inferences that the filmmakers would like you to take when you see some of these characters.
Hey, any movie is made better by the liberal application of hot women kicking somebody's ass. I say that unapologetically.
I thought you were going to say the liberal application of roundhouse kicks.
Well, that too. Well, good roundhouse kicks. Let's be honest here.
Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Roadhouse. Let's catch up with a few comments in the board real quick before we move on. So, Bruce Starr came in after we were talking about Goldar's game and everything. He's like, "Wow, hey, is Halo still a game?" Halo, has there been anything new coming up for Halo recently, Goldar?
Yeah, they're actually getting ready to release Halo Infinite.
Okay.
I think somebody was playing the beta the other day, so I think it's about to drop anytime now.
All right. Wonder Midget came back. I'm Mr. Cold Miser, I'm Mr. Snow. That's when we're talking about Narwhal being a little overheated up there in the very warm state. And then Wonder Midget came back. Nito, Mr. Narwhal, very jealous. Bruce Starr asked the Smithsonian to see the giant skeletons. And then to wrap it all, we got Wonder Midget. God love him, bless his heart.
I believe she's talking about the director.
Yes, and that's all. Now we're all caught up. There we go.
We are caught up. So,
We're
Mr.
caught up.
Narwhal, when does the new Fanurism chapter drop? Is that tonight or tomorrow night?
That is tonight at midnight.
All right. So you can check that out on our YouTube page, folks. Don't miss it. And the last piece of shill business we have before we move on to the real show. Tomorrow night, we have yet another installment of our Friday night programming block. And that would be called, I'm sorry, Reverend, what's the name of that show again?
Sci-Fi Friday.
That's right, folks. We're continuing our journey through Babylon 5, and we are now at episode 2, season 2, entitled Revelations. And personally, I think this is a fantastic episode. It does a great job of kind of bookending the sort of mini trilogy that began with Chrysalis and continued with last week's outing entitled Points of Departure. And this kind of does a lot of things. Tomorrow night, we get to see what happens when Delenn emerges from her cocoon, as well as we find out where Jakar has been for the past couple of weeks. And Dr. Franklin is going to engage in a rather unusual procedure to try to rouse Mr. Garibaldi out of his coma. And all this isn't just in one episode. Plus, the table will be set for the rest of the season. I'm sure that the B5 Babe will be there joining us in the chat. The Reverend and I are going to be there. Gold, are you going to make it tomorrow night?
I will not be able to make it, but I will be there in spirit.
So it'll be it'll be the Reverend, myself, the B5 Babe, and who knows? You never know who else is gonna join up and show up in the chat. But we're gonna be offering our thoughts and little anecdotes about it. And you know what? If you want to see what all this sci-fi goodness is about, you've never tuned in, tune in tomorrow night at 7 p.m. and find out what Sci-Fi Friday is all about. So with all that being said, let's move on to our first segment. And unfortunately, it is one that we've has had to return. We never like to see it return to the program, and that's our RIP segment. And we actually have two tonight, unfortunately. The first one is actress Markie Post. She was a staple of 1970s and 80s television. She was on shows like Chips and Simon and Simon, Buck Rogers, A-Team, you know, all the staple shows of that era that you would expect.
We can't forget Night
Well,
Court.
no, I haven't gotten there yet.
Sorry.
No. I'm just kind of laying the groundwork, you know. I mean, she came up doing all the shows that a working actor would book in that time period. She had three notable roles that I know that apparently the Reverend's itches to talk about. Is she was on The Fall Guy. She was on a show that I'd forgotten about called Hearts of Fire with John Ritter, who is also, you know, unfortunately no longer with us. And I believe, as the Reverend wants to talk about, the show that got Mr. Data started, and that would be Night Court.
Yes. Well, I mean, all right. So, yeah, to be honest, that's the one where I really kind of fell in love with Markie Post. And back in my youth, I thought I wanted to be an attorney and everything like that. So the comedy element of Night Court was always fun to watch. But Markie Post was always just so fun to watch. She played this whole innocent lawyer wanting to do good thing that was just so endearing, and I just loved her for that. But you know, one of the ones that that was fun to kind of see her come, you know, to play is her most recent role that I saw her in was in Chicago PD when she was playing the mother of Aaron, and the actress's name just jumped out, Sophia Bush, on Chicago PD and stuff. So she played this kind of hard hit, you know, not so good mother and everything. And it was like, wow, that's not the Markie Post I remember, but no, I always enjoyed her shows and just the way she portrayed the characters. And it was definitely a fun trip down memory lane, hearing about her, not hearing about the passing, but just remembering Markie Post.
Right. You guys got anything? Goldar, you may be a little too young for remember Markie Post in her heyday.
I did watch Night Court when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
But I don't really remember a whole lot of it. So to be honest, I don't have anything recent that I've really seen her in. I see here that she appeared on Scrubs, and I've seen a few episodes of Scrubs, but I haven't seen all of them, so I don't have much reference for her, unfortunately.
Now, I know Mr. Narwhal, you loved him some Night Court.
Oh, I was all about Night Court back in the day. That was one of the few shows that I pretty much watched religiously, and especially when you got that banter going back and forth between Marky Post's character and Dan Fielding, played by the incomparable John Larroquette.
Yes.
It's sort of sad to see that John and I think Marsha Warfield are the last two original cast members surviving, because we just recently lost Charlie Robinson, and then of course we've lost Richard Mall and Harry Anderson quite a few years ago. It's one of those shows that I think really has passed into the legendary status of shows like Barney Miller and some of the other comedy procedural law enforcement shows that we've had in the past.
It's kind of funny you mentioned Barney Miller, because I always looked at Night Court as the spiritual successor to Barney Miller in a way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know that they've been trying to get together a reboot or a continuation of Night Court for the past few years. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I have heard that they tried to get John Larroquette involved in it, so that would be nice if they were able to make that happen. But even if they don't, we still have the work that this wonderful cast did over the past few years, and Marky Post will definitely be missed.
Absolutely, and I believe I don't want to say for sure, but I believe Night Court's available on Peacock, either Peacock or Paramount Plus, one of the two. And it always kind of made me sad that it never reached. I mean, don't get me wrong, Night Court was a popular show and it ran for a long time, but it never kind of reached the cultural, zeitgeist like Cheers or Friends did. I don't know, for some whatever. And again, when I say that, it sounds like it was unsuccessful. It was a very successful show, but it just it just never reached that cultural touchstone like those two shows, or like a Seinfeld or something like that. So
yeah, it's always like a number two show, not the top of the list, but right beneath that.
Yeah, you always wanted to watch it, but you always wanted to watch it after you watched everything else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, let me go watch Cheers first. If I VCR'd it, I made sure I got VCR Cheers, but then I would like, well, okay, now I can watch Night Court.
James Greenwood is watching. Welcome, sir.
Hey, welcome.
So our second RIP tonight, unfortunately, is going to lead us back into the music corner. This is the second time in 2 weeks we've done a music corner that's also been an RIP, and that is the session and backup singer Nicole Hurst. Tragically lost her battle with cancer at the age of 38. Just here in the last few days. I did hear something say she was 39, but the article I saw said she was 38. So we'll split the difference. For those who don't know her, over the course of her career, she worked with a number of artists, including Bruno Mars, Kelly Clarkson. She sang backup for Stevie Wonder, for God's sake. But she was most, I guess, noticeable, and I put noticeable in kind of air quotes, from her long-standing work with Justin Timberlake. In fact, if you watch the concert on Netflix that is there, which, by the way, is an incredible film to watch, she is featured prominently, in fact, and man, the camera loves her. I mean, every time it's on her, she lights up the stage, and it's just tragic. Apparently, she's been battling this for quite a while, and it reemerged in 2019. And unfortunately, she was not able to beat it this time. So, Reverend, I'm going to hand it back to you. You can say a few more words about Nicole, or just dive into music corner. How do you want to do it?
Well, I'll just say a few words, and then we can dive straight in. So, I mean, with the Queen and I, and I guess my comments will actually kind of lead us right into 2020. We're fortunate enough to actually get to see Justin Timberlake perform for the 2020 experience here in Tulsa. And she was part of the show. And I tell you, I mean, that concert was so electric and dynamic. And I mean, and what was so great about it is that though JT was, front and center and just killing it and everything, everybody on that stage was just as dynamic and eye-catching and energetic that, there she was there. And so when you have someone with that type of energy, it just really helps take that performance to the next level. And Justin Timberlake, he's posted about his thoughts about her passing and stuff and what he's had to deal with there. And and I feel like he knows what type of artist we've truly lost today. So
absolutely. And again, we send our condolences out to both Marky Post and her family. And it's tragic anytime someone leaves us, but it's really tragic when they're so young and they've got so much more left to offer. But like you said, you'll always have those memories, and that kind of leads us into the album you want to talk about tonight. I see you. We both kind of decided to be a good thing to pick, which would be the 2020 Experience. In my opinion, one of the greatest R&B neo soul albums of the 2010s. An album that I was quite skeptical about, I might add, but you and the Queen turned me on to it. So
that record, that album, whatever, that CD, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, whatever they're called now.
Exactly. That source of media you get so rare to have those albums, I believe, as an artist that just are so, entertainment changing to so many fans that artists can go their entire careers and never have that. And JT, the stars aligned, the planets came into into the fold, and magic was formed. And I tell you that I can't tell you how many times we've listened to that. We continue to listen to that.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a staple to go to anytime you want to hear some JT music. It's so dynamic. And I mean, when did it come out?
Came out according to the Wikipedias, which I'm looking at right now. It was actually released March 19th of 2013.
Wow.
I know.
I cannot believe it's been that long. It does.
Now keep in mind though, that the first album was March 19th of 2013. It doesn't say when the second one came out, because there was a second disc, I guess, that came out.
You are correct.
And it doesn't say when that came out, but it's got songs. I mean, he could have just done a Sexy Back Part 2. This thing, there's only one song on it that I don't care for, but I can't hate the album because I see what they were trying to do, but for me, it just doesn't work. And I know the Queen bristles every time I say this, but Blue Ocean Floor just doesn't do it. This doesn't do it for me. But every other, I mean, there's songs that when I first heard of it, this song is annoying as hell. And then I'm like, oh, I wasn't listening to it right.
Right.
I mean,
I knew the one that hooked you had to be Suit and Tie.
Oh yeah. That Mirrors and
Mirrors,
yeah.
But I was going to say Narwhal, Goldar. I mean, we kind of rambled for a little bit. What are your guys' thoughts? I mean,
are you even fans of this album?
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I actually ever listened to was Mongolian tube and throat singing, so I'm not qualified to really go into a lot of this popular music. So I'm gonna let Goldar talk.
I really did like this album. I feel like this was like the last greatest JT album, because Man in the Woods was
it's not as successful.
It's an acquired taste.
It is.
Yeah. Like shag carpet.
Popcorn ceiling.
Yeah.
No, I love this album. I think, there's a lot of really, really awesome songs on it. I remember, hearing the first part of the album, being excited for the second part to come out, which I think they only released, if I remember right, they released them within months of each other.
Was it that soon? I don't remember.
Yeah, I feel like it was within months of each other. Like maybe it was like 2 to 3 months apart, which I love it when, studios do stuff like that. Not to sidetrack, but I loved it whenever they did that for The Matrix, where they released like one movie in the spring and then they released the other one in the fall. So like if they would do like double albums and stuff like that, I would be really excited for things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this album. I still listen to some of the songs off of it today. Not as much as Future Sex Love Sounds, because I feel like that's probably the pinnacle JT album.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Personally. Yeah, that's personally my favorite one. But this album's really good. It's really amazing for, replay throughs and It's just solid.
Well, I'm gonna kind of, and I know there's people watching, Dan, you losing your man card. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. But I gotta say, it's kind of interesting. I look
Say it
at
again, Goldar. Say it again, Goldar.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah. I was like, just like, I hate it when people do stuff
I know,
like
I
that.
know. Like, because okay, well, I'm gonna tell. This is actually the Reverend's story to tell. Okay, but he told me, and I've just ever since he said that, it's always been like my favorite comeback. He when he and the Queen got to go see the concert at the BOK Center, which, by the way, if you watch the 2020 Experience film on Netflix, it's about an hour and a half, and according to the Queen, you're getting half the show. She said he played for 3 freaking hours, and she could tell you exactly where they made the cut because it's the same. It's not the show they recorded, but it's the same tour. But anyway, they got to see it at in a suite at the BOK Center. So they're literally up there in suit and tie, getting free booze, free food, and it's him and the Queen and about 8 or 10 other couples, and all the husbands are like, "Freaking JT, stupid shit, dude." He's like, dude. We are up here at the BOK Center watching a show that tickets are hundreds of dollars a piece to. We'd never afford this on our own dime. And this is a great show. And he said it was one of the greatest concerts he'd ever seen. So I'm like, people just need to lighten up on that stuff. But I don't know where I was going with that. But I always felt that Future Sex Love Sound was kind of like maybe his version of 1999. And the 2020 Experience is his sign of the times. I mean, one was very important to his career. Another one was very important to him as far as moving him musically. There are songs on 2020 Experience that sound like Prince tunes. Spaceship Coupe is a Prince song. I'm sorry. That's and Push Your Lover Girl. And then you've got, it's just a great album. I'm saying, if you haven't heard this album, what's wrong with you?
So I'll tell you. Yeah. So I'm just going to say the way he opened the show just blew my mind, and it's just and Geek Boy's gonna it's just something we still talk about, is that he came out and then he's all suit and tied up, and everything, and he walks out, he like looks at his shoe, he has a little scuff, he like pulls his little handkerchief off, lifts down and gets the shoe and busted up a little bit, and a very Morris Day in the time. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe Geek Boy's not here. He would freak out on that move alone. And that, to me, that really set the tone for the whole concert. I mean, it was just smooth, energetic, powerful. I mean, if you sat in your seat, you're musically dead inside. I mean, there was just no way sitting through that 3-hour concert that something did not move you to get up. And it just wasn't 2020. I mean, everyone knows concerts aren't just the album they're pushing. You get all the oldies and the goodies. We had some Senorita, and then he did some covers, some other stuff, some like little hints of some of the old what was he, NSYNC or whatever the hell he was in. So I mean,
whatever that band was,
whatever that band he was the star of and everything. It's gonna be May.
Don't do that again.
I'm going to. I will next May. So, but I mean, we're pulling up some videos of a concert someone put out online and of this 2020 in Perth, and I mean, again, it's just so phenomenal of a concert. In saying that, I mean, no matter what he does, if he comes anywhere near that we can go see him, man, I highly recommend him. Whether it's 2020, even Man in the Woods. We actually did get to go see him again on Man in the Woods. Again, it wasn't that same level of 2020 Experience, but man, it was still a great show and everything. He is a hell of a performer.
Well, but there's a level of class about that show, about the 2020, well, the album itself. I mean, and the album, the songs have, I don't want to get too much because it's in a JT podcast, but it's music corner. It's fine. The songs have a lot of themes about, obviously about love and about relationships, but about voyeurism and about how love can be a drug, and just, I mean, and how sometimes maybe love's not good for you, but you don't. These songs have a lot of stuff going on in them. I mean, both music. I mean, let's be real. This album was made at the mixing board. Okay, I mean, let's be real. But most albums like that are. But it was very good. And again, for those that may have tuned in, because we've got. The Blues Band's here. He says, hello, my friend's been watching on the Wonder Midget's feed. Great show thus far. Thank you. IT Geek does know his concerts, but you know, we started this whole thought process when we found out that Nicole Hurst passed away, lost her battle with cancer. And again, I don't know if she was in any of the clips that you had going on, but she was a star. She was a star of his show at many points in time. So
I agree. So I think with that, I think we got a great cover of our music. So I think we just need to move right on to our next topic.
All right. Well, you know, that item, which is actually the lead, this is unusual for us because we usually do a pretty good job of burying the lead until about 90 minutes in. But not tonight, my friends. We are actually getting to our lead topic straight away, and that is we're going to air our thoughts on not just the Suicide Squad. Now, our initial thoughts are going to be very general and spoiler free. But once we kind of go around the horn, we're going to dive into some spoiler territory, but we will let everyone know when we do. So with that being said, who wants to go first?
I don't know. Do we want to start positive or negative? I guess is the question here.
I guess that's a good question. Yeah.
All right. So I guess all right. So just going around, Narwhal, love or hate?
Neither. I didn't hate it enough to hate it, but I didn't love it enough to love it. I thought it was just, it was okay.
Okay, Goldar.
I would give it a solid 2.5 stars.
Okay, Goldar. 1 to 5 stars. You loved it.
I would give it 4 stars.
4 stars. All right. Geek Boy, 1 to 5 stars.
3.5.
3.5.
Yeah. And that half is teetering, maybe 3.25.
Okay. I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna go with Narwhal, and I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I would say let's just keep it going around the corner. Narwhal, go first. What were your loves, hates, and moment about the movie? What was it?
So I watched this over here in the hotel on the TV here in the room. So I didn't do the whole big screen experience, and I'm sort of glad I didn't, just because watching the film, it just didn't really keep my attention like I had thought it might. One thing about some of these films like Suicide Squad and these other ones where going in that a lot of the characters are not going to make it to the end. I didn't really have a lot of attachment to the characters that we saw in the film. A lot of the characters, were shuffled off this mortal coil with nary a bump. But the characters that did stay around, I just didn't really resonate with a lot of the characters. And then, some of the plot choices that they made with the film were okay, but there was nothing really in there that made me sit up and go, wow, this is something I've never seen before. This is something really cool. And in fact, a lot of the things that I sat there and watched went, okay, I saw this in that movie that was done better. I saw that in that movie, it was done better. There wasn't anything in this movie to me that stood out as something that was unusual and new, that really sort of grabbed my attention. It was just sort of, it wasn't a bad movie. It's not a movie that I would necessarily watch again on cable. It's not one that I'll buy, to be sure. But I can't really point out anything about it that said, I hated this movie. It was a decent enough movie. I just didn't think it was anywhere near as good as a lot of people think.
Okay. All right,
what do you think?
You want to go, Reverend, or you want me to go?
I was going to let Golder. Just want to say, hey, Sprout just joined it. So welcome, Sprout.
Hey there.
He says hello from Montana, or Montana says hello.
We're all over the country today.
We are.
Right. We are.
Right.
We are actually. Hopefully, that friend of the B5 babe over in London is watching us too. So we'd be worldwide.
International superstar.
I am Pitbull 918, Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide.
So, Goldar, what you got for us on this?
So I really loved it because I felt the overall focus of the movie was not on the characters, but on the story itself, which I felt like was the biggest or probably the weakest point of the first Suicide Squad movie, because I recently went back to rewatch that, and it wasn't until about 35 minutes in that they kind of revealed where the plot was going, and I'm like, what are we going to get to the point here? Like, are we just trying to do cool introductions for everybody? And not only that, they crammed like as many popular songs as they possibly could in the first Suicide Squad movie, hoping you wouldn't pay attention to how bad the film was. They were just like, oh, cool jams every few minutes. Did you notice that? Did you notice that? Like every few minutes, it was like a popular radio song.
A lot of needle drops.
I'm like,
I never noticed that, but you bringing that up, I'm like, oh, he's right. Yeah.
Oh no, he is 100% right. Like it would be like, it's like letting my kids shuffle their iPod around. Like,
yeah. Somebody put like iPod on shuffle. It just was like, like play the cue the music now. Mm-hmm. But I liked this movie because they did do a lot of things, just like Mr. Narwhal was saying, that were just kind of like, okay, I've seen that before in movies. Like, okay, this was kind of done before. So there were some points where I was like, it was all right. But what I liked though is that they didn't bore us to death with like too much detail about some of the characters that we knew were either not going to make it or not necessarily important. But they gave us enough in the dialogue, which I think is the most important part. Because if they, go back and do a bunch of flashbacks like they did in the first one with Harley Quinn, or just things that just draw out the movie, that's like, cut it out. They just did it in the dialogue, which is what would naturally happen in conversation with people. You wouldn't walk up to somebody and then suddenly a flashback, shows up and tells you their backstory. Hey, that's weird. Like, you don't think about that, and that doesn't typically happen in other films. They usually do that, express those kinds of things in dialogue. So I appreciated that, the way they did that with Polka Dot Man, the way they did that with Bloodsport. They even kind of addressed some of those details with Harley Quinn, but they didn't make her boring or over the top. They kind of continued a little bit of her story from, Birds of Prey and in the first Suicide Squad movie, which I thought was great that they did that. They introduced a really unique kind of gon-zo villain at the very end.
Oh boy, did they.
I never thought they were going to do this character, but I really enjoyed that because this would have been the perfect film to do that with the perfect director. Because, somebody that directed a film like Slither has gotta do something really bizarre with what they're given. And James Gunn's the perfect guy to do that with. On top of that, I just thought it was a really kind of entertaining movie that had a lot of strong elements from Guardians of the Galaxy, but just a little bit bloodier, a little bit more R-rated, which
a little bit bloodier.
Well, yeah, quite a bit bloodier, which I feel like Guardians could get away with that. Not necessarily in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but if it were like outside of the Marvel Universe and they had a team like Guardians, I feel like it would take off really, really well with audiences, with that kind of graphic violence in the way that Deadpool did.
Funny you should bring up Deadpool, because I'm going to discuss that in context with this movie here in a little bit. But...
Okay. That's all my thoughts on it.
Okay. So let's get caught up on the chat real quick. Goldar is spot on, says the Blues Man, with the in reference to the first Suicide Squad. And then Sprout came back with Suicide Squad is a horrible version of Expendables, which is a horrible version of the Dirty Dozen. So just
you just keep making a copy of a copy of a copy, and sooner or later it's not watchable.
Exactly. So you want to go next there, Geek Boy? Or you want
I will, because I have a pretty good idea what you're going to say.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to tone it down from what you said in the parking lot in the gym the other night, but
I'll tone it down. There's some quality details I shared with you that should not be in the internet.
Probably not. No, at least not on the maybe on the dark web. But
yes.
But anyway, I have a very uneven opinion about this movie. I mean, I felt it was far superior to the first one, to the first Suicide Squad. I mean, it had some tonal shifts, but for the most part, James Gunn handled it really well. It is, and I kind of to piggyback on what Goldar said, it is a very James Gunn film. And I loved all the banter between the characters. My three favorites were, and there's no spoilers here. My three favorite characters were King Shark, Polka Dot Man, and Patriot. I mean, they just. I know John Cena has a very limited range, but when you can find that range, he'll work. Now, do I think that character deserves a series?
You mean Peacemaker?
Yeah, Peacemaker. I don't
Okay.
I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. I mean,
Yeah,
he's more of a great, he's more of a great side character to have to react off things or to cause things to make other people. I don't know that character needs a series. But for me, and I hate to use this phrase because you guys know how I feel about it, but this movie is actually how you do subvert expectations and still satisfy your audience, with one exception that I'll get into later when we do our spoiler section. But yeah, my expectations kept getting subverted through the whole film, but my emotional expectations got met. And that was fantastic. I mean, again, we'll save some of this for the spoiler section. I thought the CG was really good, which can be the downfall of a lot of these type films. I thought all the roles, even some of the small ones or some of the ones that didn't get as much screen time as we maybe thought they were going to, were cast really well. And Goldar kind of hinted at this. The movie plays with time a little bit. Not, I don't mean like time travel, but I mean it shows things out of sequence and then jumps back and forth. I think the very first time it does it, it's the most successful. It does it a couple other times that I don't think work as well in the movie, but it's not like the movie falls apart. I do think that we get the most comic book accurate Amanda Waller that we've ever gotten. And boy, did this movie ever earn its name. I mean, any character, with maybe one exception, and she sells a lot of merchandise, is fair game in this movie. They established that pretty early on. So I think the film did a lot of things right. There's a couple of things that didn't do so right. And one of those is and I'm going to be as non-spoiler about this as I can. Harley Quinn is a very popular character, and everyone knew that going in, so they weren't going to make another Suicide Squad movie without her. And I think Mr. Narwhal actually said this: you could take her entire story. Her entire story has no bearing on the film whatsoever. And I really don't think that the DC live action group has any idea what to do with her. But like I said, she sells the merch. So I think maybe, her segment of the movie could have been lifted out as like a DC one shot, how Marvel used to do those one shots. And they could have put that as maybe something to promote the film after it had come out. Another thing that didn't work with me was rats. Lots and lots of freaking rats. Okay. And again, that's all I'm going to say about this. This one's kind of hard to quantify. Something else that did be, because how do I say this? And this isn't a spoiler, but and I don't, because if I say this wrong, it's going to make me sound like I'm bagging on Idris Elba, because I'm not. Okay. Everyone, I loves me some Idris Elba, but Will Smith, let's just say Will Smith is sorely missed in this movie as far as I'm concerned. And the last big thing that kind of goes to the last thing that Goldar said, there is a lot, for me, there is a huge tonal shift in the last 30 minutes of this movie, coupled with a really unexpected death that really kind of turned me off. I mean, I was really, I think of everybody here, Goldar and I were kind of on the same ride. I mean, I was really digging this movie until that point. And I know I'm in the minority of this, but there's two things that coupled together that just kind of jerked me out of the movie. And I just kind of ended up, I guess, kind of miffed. So even with all those strong feelings I mean, Turtle Gal and I were both going like, WTF, man, what's going on here? And it really jerked us both out of the film. She ended up, I mean, it jerked us so strongly that it ended up in her dislike column. But even with that, it still came down the like column for me. I would watch this again. I probably plan to. I don't know if I'd buy it, but those things I mentioned really came close to having me dismiss this film. And one of the things I have said, I'm sorry, I've rambled on too long, but there's been people on the internet and on YouTube going, man, this is in my top 5 or top 3 comic book movies of all time. I would not say that. I mean, I overall it was, like I said, it was way better than the first one, but I don't think it stuck the landing. I still liked it though. That's it for me. So Reverend.
All right, so we'll get caught up on a few comments here real quick. So Sprout came in, what range? You can't see him. And then Wonder Midget, okay, calm down about the rat, Cindy. And then Sprout came back. It's known as the James Gunn jerk.
Ah,
so,
is that a dance?
I don't know.
Hand jive, hashtag hand jive.
So
Reverend.
All right, I've got so many feels about this movie that it's like, how do I talk about it without being spoiler, or do we just say, all right, here's where the spoilers come? Because I've got issues with pretty much from the beginning.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, if your thoughts are that spoilery, if you think they are, or you don't think you'll be able to express, I'll just say, okay, folks, if you haven't seen Suicide Squad, if you haven't seen the Suicide Squad and you don't want to be spoiled, you might want to jump out now and give us a little bit and jump back in.
Yep.
I hate to tell people not to watch, but
hey, you can keep watch, just mute us for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Give me
okay.
5 minutes of or you're getting some spoilers.
We'll give everybody 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Reverend, you're off the chain.
All right, what the hell? Savant shows this badass guy sitting in a blocked yard with a ball, showing how badass he can ricochet that shit around, and kills a bird in a corner. And yet
a lot of birds get killed in this movie.
Well, there's a bird that's eating his damn brain later on in the movie too, and I'm like, what the hell? Anyway, which it kind of fits with the movie, but I agree with you, the Amanda Waller portrayal, in a sense that she's formulated this first Suicide Squad to be the cannon fodder for the Suicide Squad. So I see that, but to get Weasel, what the hell, Weasel? I mean,
dude, that shit was hilarious.
I'm like,
did anybody check to see if the Weasel could swim?
I'm like, I mean, other than he literally did nothing other than just live. I mean, you can't say
great. That's what was so damn great about that whole thing.
I'm like, I just don't even get it. I'm like, Waller. This is where it's so anti-Waller. It's like, if I'm going to throw a team together, it's going to be campfire. I'm going to at least make sure they can get to the beach to die, in glorious, cannon fodder fire.
But this was her way of cleaning out the prison. I mean, she sent in the freaking D squad.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then why is Flag with that team? Then why is Harley
That was a
Quinn
good
with
question.
that team?
Okay, that was a good question.
Your boy. I mean, we've known Flag is Waller's boy from the very first one, and he's on the basically the squad that's supposed to be just dead. The one that she's just offering up as sacrificial. Yeah, I can see, offering up Harley Quinn because she's just a pain in the ass. She'll probably, Waterbomb's like, it's Harley Quinn. She'll come out on top. So will Flag. But again, I mean, like, there were so many other people that, that she could have put in charge of that would have just been easy to sacrifice. But I just didn't see the logic Waller would do to throw Flag onto that team. So we get to the beach. I feel sorry for every one of those actors.
He's going scene by scene, folks.
And I'm like, I feel so sad. Well, I mean, I can't feel sad. They got paid, so maybe I take that money to just have a 15-minute job. I'm quite sure of to just go die on a beach as a supervillain. But so I mean, but again, Boomer. I was really surprised they took him out. He's like, isn't he going to be in the Flash movie or something?
I don't know that. Not now.
You don't know. He could come back, as we all know. So I mean, because he's traveling through time. Anyway, so yeah,
dude, I thought the beach shit was hilarious. I mean, I was dying laughing during the whole thing.
I thought it was hilarious too, because I felt like it was an establishing scene to tell you, all right, don't expect everybody to make it out to the end of this movie like they did in the first one. There was like literally 2 people that died in the first one. Yeah. And I was like, there's Suicide Squad, but nobody dies.
but see, here's my problem with it though, that they did almost that exact same gag in Deadpool 2.
They
had
Yeah.
Had they not done that exact same gag in Deadpool 2, I might have, really appreciated it. But I'm sitting there going, okay, I've seen this before. This is a retread joke from another movie that I think was probably done way better in the first movie. What the hell?
Yeah. And then, okay, I love the CGI King Shark, but I mean, it was done. I am Groot,
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, we've already seen this, James.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
already seen this.
I literally have in my notes that King Shark was the Groot of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But I do want a poster that says "Book read, smart me."
So if you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend the animated Harley Quinn that's on HBO Max.
I love that show.
That show is great,
that's a good show.
And that is a great King Shark. I mean, he's a he's literate. He's actually a computer hacker. I mean, that was just phenomenal. It's just it's so much funnier that you have this huge beast that eats people and all that stuff. But here he is. He's your tech wizard. I mean, it's funny as hell. So again, all right. So then all right, again, how long have I had? Have I hit my 5-minute mark?
I don't know.
All right, we get.
I'll start watching the clock now.
You need to. So we get to the village, and so here we are.
Oh
They're
shit!
going
Another scene I forgot.
But I've seen this before, where the two killers basically are trying to one up the way they, it was done in Lord of the Rings. I'm at, I'm at 12. I kill a giant elephant. That only counts as one. I mean, like. Okay, we get it. And then they get to the
the payoff of the scene is what's so damn funny. Well, that and the poor bastard in the bathtub.
But I mean, and so I guess being military minded, you get to the end and there's Flag having tea with the leader, and it's like, really, Flag? You didn't check in and let them know that you've made contact? I'm like, that's so unmilitaristic that I just can't see that. Like, yeah. No one heard all these explosions, and I don't know. So, and then we already covered the Harley Quinn. So I mean, we knew we were going to have a Harley Quinn scene and all that stuff. So I mean, that was just never. But I agree with you, Geek Boy. That should have been a one shot. Her whole segment could have easily been left out. I think you and I even talked about it. That'd have been a great scene where basically she just comes out the door. And like, what y'all doing? And then they're like, we're rescuing you. Well, I can go back inside. And then at the end of the movie, you see how she made her escape. I mean, that would have been
like
great.
One of them says, "Where'd you get that dress?" It's a long story, and then just go on from there. So
exactly. So that would have, I thought, been a way better payoff.
And then sorry, go ahead.
I don't want to say, and the poor general. This is the same general from Quantum of Solace. This guy cannot hold a regime for a day. I mean. He finally takes presidency. Yeah, he loses it in a day. I mean, see it, Quantum of Solace, you did it again. All right, come on, General. I'm like, all right, fine.
Quantum of Solace wasn't a very good Bond movie either.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he apparently has a run of things. So, and then Starro comes breaking out all this crap, and then you tell me they just ricochet these things. This guy with bullets like nobody's business. And I get it, it's not as dramatic, but then it's the javelin that pierces the eye for her to just like float in this ambionic eye fluid that all the mice swim into and eat it. And I'm like, and so I don't know, and but okay, I definitely got on my 5 minutes. It's just.
Actually, no, it's just you have, but that's okay.
Yeah, I have. So
we're still in spoiler territory, and I want to address something. And I'm sorry, I hear what you and Mr. Narwhal are saying, and I again, I can't disagree with what you're saying, but everything in that first act worked for me. I mean, yes, I do agree that the opening gag is very similar to what they did in Deadpool 2, but they both worked for me. Like, I thought they were both effective. I thought they both worked. I did think it was, kind of interesting. They spent a little bit of time introducing these very notable actors that make up this D-list squad, and they turn out to be, the sacrificial lambs for the real team. The only thing is the guy that Pete Davidson played, the one that's so
Blackguard.
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 He did not think this plan through very well. Everybody's like, Blackguard, it's like, hey guys, like, you realize one of your team members is going to shoot you in the back at any moment.
Yeah.
He didn't really think this out very well, you know.
Yeah. I will say when Blackguard was Pete Davidson, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So when they shot him, the Queen was like, "Thank God I did not have to listen to him the entire movie." She does not like Pete Davidson, so when he died, she cheered.
Well,
So,
when they blew him, I mean, he didn't just die. Spoiler:
that face, yeah,
he got his face blown off. I mean, this movie was a hard R. And again, I've already talked about the Weasel. That was I thought that was great. I did enjoy Stallone's take on King Shark. I know it's not. I mean, it's definitely not what we've seen on the Flash, or apparently not what they've seen. What we get in the Harley Quinn show, and I thought the payoff when they go into the village, I thought that was just. I mean, the realization of what they've done. We didn't see anybody. That was comedy gold to me. I mean, yeah, the logic goes out the door. Why didn't they hear all this noise? And I mean, I get all that, but man, it, you know, and I will say this, as much as something else that really did work for me. You know, I already said I like the banter between Patriot and Bloodsport. I enjoyed that. As much as I thought they could have lifted the Harley Quinn segment out, when she goes on her rampage and you're seeing like butterflies and flowers fly out of it, I love that. Is so Harley Quinn. I really love that. I thought Peter Capaldi was pretty good. I don't think he got enough to do. But yeah, I thought he was really good.
I would say the one thing that I kind of liked about the movie is Polka Dots Man mother segments where basically I mean I kind of see that will actually kind of work for me in a sense that it's like his huge rage about, you know, his mother turning it, wanting him to be a superhero and giving him all this, you know, this crap, and then, you know, Starro being the mother and everybody's this mother. That works for me because I was like, that's kind of psychological and that was actually funny. But yeah, so I mean, anyway.
Yeah.
Goldar, Narwhal, what do you guys got?
So yeah, I would like if they did the beach scene in a different way that maybe could have been a little bit different than what Deadpool 2 would have been something funny, like they were in the helicopter or something like that, and they were on their way there, and they were like trying to hype them all up. You know, that they're going to drop on the beach and that this is the plan. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like they do like an actual, like, I don't know, like a shoot through, like they kind of visualize it and they show where everybody's going and doing all of that. And then next thing you know, one guy on the beach has a rocket launcher and just fires it and it blows everybody out.
Yeah,
that would have been good.
That would have been good. I would have loved to see something similar in the fact where you see them fight through these lines and everything and finally think they made it to their objective. And then next thing you know, yeah, it's just like it's the trap that they thinned the herd for the true team and then killed them all, you know, or something to that effect. So it would have been, I think, would have been a little better, other than this fact like they were because I mean there was nothing even to draw those people to that beach. I mean, anyway, Narwhal, what do you got, man? First thing, I got to shut up or I'll just go on another rant.
Damn, I didn't think we was talking Star Trek Discovery tonight.
Oh, Mr. Narwhal, you're on
mute.
You're muted. You're muted. Oh. there we go.
That's the problem.
There we go.
Yeah. So no, the one thing on Starro that sort of, I guess, bugged me a little bit was the fact that he wound up being, I don't want to say a disposable enemy, but I'm not overly familiar with his character, but from what I've seen from him in like the comics and from the different animated movies that I've seen, Starro's supposed to be a much scarier and much bigger deal than he wound up being. Because, like, you know, you see him, you know, with his little starfish buddies take over, you know, just normal people in the street. It's one thing, and it's like a zombie movie. But, you know, if he takes over like Superman or Wonder Woman or the Justice League, you know, that takes it to a whole nother level. And I wonder if, you know, they've sort of shot themselves in the foot a little bit by playing their Starro card when they might have been able to save him for almost a Thanos level kind of threat, you know.
Yeah,
I agree. So another element that some people don't realize is that Starro has a kid that actually comes, and there's a series where he is Batman's sidekick, and there is a debate where the Starro kid is actually considered like one of the best Robins. And it's just like, what the hell? And so I agree with you. That's a great point, Narwhal. I think Starro could have been built into a Thanos type of event movie for DC. And I think just once again, DC just is too much in a hurry trying to catch up with Marvel and not thinking it out that that could cash into it and stuff. So
well, you know, hopefully we'll be able to you know, get rid of the whole DCEU and just let them start from scratch. It looks like Geek Boy has just been just disgusted with us and just fled the scene.
I know. We talked about Starro on the eye socket. He's like, nope, I gotta go.
I'm out.
So my favorite part actually was Ratcatcher 2. And that they kind of gave her a little bit of a background, but like she ended up being the saving grace at the very end. It felt very James Gunn to have like the very underdog character be the one that would come out on top like that. And I just had a feeling watching the scene. I was like, this is going to gross people out. People are not going to like this just for this one scene. A bunch of rats eating a giant alien starfish. Like, what the hell?
I thought Taika Waititi was wasted in this movie, by the way.
I agree. I agree. I mean, his role just didn't make sense for someone of such a name presence like that.
Or if you're going to have him in it, don't publicize it. Just make him
it should be a
delightful
surprise
cameo. Because like I know whenever, you know, this movie was being talked about, everyone was like, "Who's Taika playing? Who is Taika playing?" Nobody would have thought he was playing just like a pretty much a nobody cameo character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, gents, I hadn't quite mastered the art of turning the camera off yet.
That's all right. Well, I was just kind of curious. Another good thing is like, I mean, they're supposed, the way I saw the characters being portrayed, they were just these kind of like this dad and daughter that live by the streets and stuff. Like, where do you get all this tech to be able to build this stuff? I mean, well, she has this magic wand that apparently she uses to summon the rats and talk to them. But it's like, how did this all come about? I mean, one of the things that I think Marvel's done so well is that they don't they either give you little bits of backstory to the character that explains why they can do the things they do, while DC just like, if you don't know the comic book, you maybe just ass out on knowing why that is. Like, you know, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it's just
I don't want to cut anybody off. Can I throw a couple other things in here that basically didn't work for me?
Yeah.
Like Polka Dot Man's death. That really really pissed me. I mean, he had one of the best arcs in the film, and just as he comes into his own, he friggin' dies. I mean,
I know.
And he died in a really cliche way, because like as soon as he was like, "I'm a superhero," I was like, he's gonna get killed by a tentacle.
Oh, I knew. As soon as he said that, I thought, "Oh, here we don't do it." And then boom, and this.
Well, not to mention, he was the one that was only doing true damage to Starro.
I know.
I was like,
and that's what I was alluding to in the non-spoiler talk. The entire Starro portion of the film just disconnected me from the entire movie. I mean, the CG looks great, but it was just that story point itself. The whole thing just didn't work for me. Like, okay, I've been watching one movie. I mean, yes, there's been some different tones changing, but I feel like, okay, I've been watching one movie this whole time, and now all of a sudden, whoa, I'm doing this. Like, Deadpool didn't all of a sudden bring a giant octopus in at the end of the Deadpool. You know, everything that happened at the end of Deadpool was consistent with what you've been watching. And for good or ill, I'm watching this giant starfish thinking, how does this play into a movie like Man of Steel? You know, like can you see Starro living in the same world as the Wonder Woman who walked across no man's land? And I can't do that, you know. And so
Starro would exist though. Like, if you were to think about it, I see Starro would exist like in the Shazam one. I could see
yes, I could
those
see
two
that.
realms easily merging
Yeah.
together.
Well, and I can't remember if I've mentioned this either privately when we're just BSing or on this show when we're BSing. But if I'm enjoying a film, okay, if I'm really into it, I'll give every film that I'm enjoying one big mulligan. You know, like you either get a misstep or you get one big ask, you know, like a stunt that's physically impossible or an odd character motivation, preferably at the last act that makes the audience cheer, but something that, you know, I mean, something that if I'm on the ride, okay, fine, I'll give that to you. This movie asks for two in about 5 minutes of each other between Rick Flag's death and the Starro emerging, and it's just like both of them were just so off-putting for Turtle Gal and I. We were both like, I mean, we literally both sat up on the couch, was like, what? And then we barely processed that, and then here comes Starro, you know. So I mean, so yeah, it jerked her completely out of the movie. I was able to kind of recover and look at all the things that I liked about the movie and go, I still liked it, you know, but I was really disappointed with that third act. And lastly, and this is a very nitpicky thing, but when Waller is introducing all the different squad members, don't you dare tell me that this character Bloodsport put Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet and not show me that in a flashback. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, spent $185 million making this movie. What's another 15?
Goldust got some feels there. I saw the head cock.
Yeah, I felt like that would have probably, if they were gonna take the time to like do a flash, because they did a ton of those in the first Suicide Squad movie, which was like, this is too much. Like, just do one character, maybe another one, but that's it. That would have been the one to do it for this movie, and then it would have brought Henry Cavill back. Like, we haven't seen him play Superman in, well, I mean, since Justice League, but you know, the Snyder Cut's relatively new for an old movie. So really, we haven't seen Superman on screen in a few years now. So it would have been cool to see him do something else outside of the movies that he was in.
Right.
Because we saw that brief cameo in Shazam, but we didn't see his face. So it would have been nice to see him connect in those other movies. So, so that's kind of disappointing. I do have like a couple of things that I want to share after you're finished.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay.
I don't know if Mr. Narwhal's done, but I'm done.
So one thing that I thought was really cool was that Bloodsport's mask was actually inspired by the Xenomorphs.
Yes, it was.
So that was really cool. James Gunn mentioned that in an interview, that's where the inspiration for that came from. But also one other thing I discovered was that originally James Gunn wanted to make Superman the villain for this movie. So like a mind control villain, similar to what we saw at the end of the Justice League Snyder Cut, would have been the villain for this movie, because he just came off the heels of Brightburn, which was amazing. If you haven't seen that, for everybody out there,
great movie.
And I think part of the reason they didn't do that was that Zack Snyder was already kind of working on something like that, so it wouldn't have really worked. But they may want to save that again for a later film. I don't know. Things are kind of up in the air with whether Henry Cavill's playing Superman in the future or not. But they kind of had it in their back pocket for something else. But I think it would have been interesting for him to be the villain in this movie, because then they really would have been the Suicide Squad, because like you're not going to really survive against a mind controlled Superman, especially if it's like Starro controlling Superman. That could have been interesting as well. Or just maybe if they had Brainiac show up in the movie and he was the one that was controlling Superman or something like that. But
well, they had in the Justice League animated stuff, I believe it was in Justice League Unlimited, they had a series where they did a flash forward into the future where all the heroes are older and stuff, and Superman's become more kind of a recluse, but he would still come and do help, but it was very precise on what he would do. Well, he goes, and I believe Batman goes to the Fortress of Solitude to confront him, and he finds out that he's got one of these, like, he's got this like starfish on him, and it's been mind controlling him for like years. And it was and he does a flashback where basically he encounters like almost a starro creature in space, brings it back to the fortress, and it latches onto him and basically takes him over for years. And so I was like, man, this would have been, I think, a really cool story to go down that way. I mean, there's been so many great, you know, and we've talked about this on the show, and hell, we've been talking about this almost a full almost hour now, people.
Yeah.
Or no, 40 minutes at least. So there's been so many great animated movies and TV shows that they could either steal from or just, you know, inspire from, that I just don't understand why DC was having this problem with basically taking great story ideas and just not knowing how to use them. Right. I know Goldar and Geek Boy, you guys enjoyed it much more than I believe. Queen just said that was shit. In case you guys could not hear
I know we heard.
I figured you did. But I just don't know why DC just can't take some of these stories and just expand on that and do something very similar. I mean, yeah, Young Justice, another series, if anyone hasn't ever watched it, is a great storyline, and I think this is where the DCU needs to kind of go for their live action. They're kind of already doing it now with on HBO Max with Titans. Has anyone watched Titans?
I have not.
Goldar?
I have not.
Man, it's another live action great show on HBO Max. It's on season 3 right now, it's totally awesome.
They seem to do animated and TV better than Marvel does.
Exactly.
Like every one of Marvel's weaknesses is a DC WB strong point. So I'm gonna, if you don't
even
mind,
Swamp Thing. I'm going to say, has anyone seen Swamp Thing? Marvel, I think you need to watch Swamp Thing if you have not
I've
seen
heard
it.
very good things about it.
Yeah. Man, it is phenomenal, and I can't believe it didn't get renewed for a second season. But anyway, I'll shut up now.
That's okay, because you're kind of, what we've all kind of said is, now based on, and this is something else that I find interesting. Okay, based on the critic reviews, which are I think in the low 90s if you look at the Rotten Tomato meter, which I realize that's not an exact science. We've talked about that before. I look more at the audience score, which is like in the high 80s. This movie should be allowing Warner Brothers to print money, but it's not. And I want to explore that for just a minute. I mean, if you take COVID and HBO Max into account, because that's whatever, it's because of COVID and it's on no, you can't really do that, because I looked at the metrics. It underperformed Mortal Kombat, both in box office and in HBO Max views. And that was a poorly reviewed and poorly audience rated film. So guys, I'll start with, I guess we'll start with Goldar. What do you think about that? What's that say? I mean, the opening of this movie was a disaster. I don't know. I don't think you can, it's a $185 million film. The box office was 26 million. It's a disaster.
It's not surprising to me, just because, like, you know, at this point, like, audiences are going to be more choosy about what movies they're going to go see, just because, you know, COVID is not necessary. It may not necessarily be as on everyone's minds when they're going out into the public, but it could be, just given the increase in cases. But they have just been so accustomed to staying home and not going to the theaters that much that it's going to take a big draw for people to come back to them. So the movies that are going to draw people back are big franchise movies that have been running a long running story. So Fast and Furious, Black Widow, Marvel, stuff like that is going to draw people back in. I don't think one-shot movies that, even if they are funny and interesting or successful or anything like that, are going to really draw the numbers that they're really wanting. So that's why we're seeing, like, Mortal Kombat is doing kind of dismal. Suicide Squad, not great.
Yeah, but it did better than Suicide Squad. That's what I can't understand.
Well, and I think the reason Mortal Kombat did better than Suicide Squad is because we haven't had any Mortal Kombat in like decades.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
It's been like, what is it, 25, almost 30 years since the last Mortal Kombat Well, the good Mortal Kombat movie. Don't get me started on that second one. Boy, that's hot trash. We should review that.
Yeah.
It'd be a whole hour of us just pummeling it.
Just trash talking a movie, which we
I mean, kind of like what
kinda
we've been doing tonight.
I kind of like to say we're not far from it now.
Oh man.
Basically, you got me holding the Reverend back going, "Oh, Reverend, let me get up, let me get up."
I'm gonna sprinkle that shit with some holy water because that thing needs to find God. All right, that's what I'm just saying.
Yes. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me that it was worse than Mortal Kombat because we haven't had a Mortal Kombat in a long time, so everybody wants to see what they did. Whereas a Suicide Squad, we had one a few years ago, and that movie tried too hard. And be honest, like that's my flat review. That movie tried too hard, and I feel like, and just kind of touching back on what Geek Boy was saying, I feel like Will Smith was the weakest point of that movie, to be honest with you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, just because he was just very, very like, yo, I want to see my daughter. Yeah, you good, man? You good? It's just very like weird, kind of like overacting Will, which I didn't think was the thing, but it just the movie just tried too hard. Whereas it
did try too hard.
But this movie didn't really try too hard, in my opinion. It was just kind of ridiculous, and I'm a fan of ridiculous. Like, if you're gonna be ridiculous, like go over the top ridiculous, do whatever you're gonna do. You don't have to be a good movie at that time. You don't have to have the best story, best character development. As long as you keep turning up the ridiculous and you hit like 11 by the end of the movie, like you did it. You set up what you were gonna do, and I think that's where Suicide Squad won. But like, audiences don't necessarily always take to those kinds of things. And again, like it's a DC movie, so everybody's already just like, where the hell is this story going to go if there's another sequel?
So you've hit on something, and I haven't gotten to Mr. Narwhal yet, but you've hit on something that I've got a list. There's an article that we posted on the page that came from Comic Book Movie, and all the reasons I thought maybe this thing might have underperformed. I was kind of making a mental list, and I'll be damned if almost every one of them wasn't in this article. And so I thought, why should I ramble on when this article says it the best? And one of the things they did point out was the Will Smith factor, which is, I've always said, Hollywood needs to stop making sequels to Will Smith movies that doesn't have freaking Will Smith in them. That hurts you bad. But do you guys think, and I guess I'll start with Mr. Narwhal since I kind of jumped in his space. Do you think that the DCEU or DC on film is damaged beyond repair? Do you think they've burnt up too much audience goodwill that they're not ever going to get that back?
Absolutely, 100%. We've seen definitely the last few DC movies that have come out. Suicide Squad. We've seen obviously Justice League. We saw with Birds of Prey. I can't say that necessarily that we saw it with Shazam, because that was sort of its own thing, really. But even then, I think even a little bit that people are just not buying into this whole DC thing anymore. The way that Zack Snyder pretty much ran this thing into the ground. People just don't really care about it as anywhere near as much as Marvel, and not as much as a lot of the other franchises are out there. People have come to expect a lot more from their franchise entertainment, and these DC movies just isn't delivering it. And a lot of people, in Hollywood thought that maybe, the name James Gunn would, bring a lot of people to the door. And I don't know if that's the case or not, but if James Gunn brought people to the door, the fact that it's DC, I think, kept a lot of people away. To where it's just like, we're tired of these. We don't want to see these anymore. They're just not. They're just not doing it for us these days. And I think that is the core reason.
Okay, so Reverend, I'm gonna jump. This was one that was on my list, but Mr. Narwhal kind of steered into it for me. Do you think that James Gunn's name doesn't really resonate for anybody outside fandom? I mean, if you're guys like us that watch every trailer and read it, James Gunn. But I mean, to John Q moviegoer, do you think they even have a clue who James Gunn is?
No. James Gunn is only James Gunn to us. James Gunn to some people, I mean, like I work with, or like, I could say like, James Gunn directed this thing, like, okay. That'd be like, what's the one that was from your fan flicks there, Narwhal?
Godfrey Ho.
Yeah. So I could literally walk up and say, hey, someone's him and James Gunn directed this movie, and they would probably get the like, I think I know one of those guys, that it wouldn't resonate with them in a sense, like that it does with us, just because we know Guardians of the Galaxies, we know what James Gunn has done.
Right.
Now I do want to kind of go back to your first question, and think I want to say that I don't think DC is totally dead, but I think and I kind of think this maybe even a little bit Marvel, is that we need a little hiatus from superhero movies for a little bit. But DC, I think, needs to get away from their mainstream characters. We've seen
you couldn't get any more non-mainstream than the ones in this movie.
Well, but I mean, that's the Suicide Squad. I'm talking more like some of their non-mainstream, like superheroes. Like what they did with Shazam is great, but I mean, I would love to see a well-done Martian Manhunt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a character that you see that a lot of people know about. There's a Black Canary movie would be great. I mean, I think they have the character base to do some really great movies. They just need to stop trying to catch up with Marvel is the only issue.
Yeah.
And so I think they need to take a pause and just kind of pull back a little bit, let all that kind of bad taste get out of everyone's mouth, and then start fresh and start like what Marvel did. Start with a character and build into it. Doesn't have to be. I mean, if we even want to, we can even do some future stuff where we get the Legion, where you get Element Lad and and Stargirl and all that stuff.
Fall off boy.
Yeah. So I mean, there are some great characters that DC has that they can easily capitalize on, and they just need to map out, like what Marvel did, a 10-year plan to get there.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump on that again, because this one also seemed to have something that couldn't lose. Do you think that Harley Quinn isn't as popular as Warner Brothers thinks she is, or you think they just don't know how to use her? That's open to the table.
I know. Goldar, go ahead, man. I know. I know. I probably got some.
I think her.
I was gonna say.
Yep.
Oh.
Go ahead, Goldar.
That was good. Okay. I thought Mr. Narwhal was freezing there for a second. No, I was gonna say.
No. I think he has a little bit, but go ahead. Yeah, Goldar, go for it.
I think DC. I think it's a little bit both. I think DC thinks she's super popular, but she's really super popular among like 30-year-old people that have like not grown up out of high school in a way, like, and I don't mean like, you like the character, you read the comic books, you enjoy the television show, stuff like that. I mean the people that like constantly dress up as her and like they post pictures of themselves on Facebook and like, they're like smoking meth out of like this coffee glass or some shit like that, like, behind the shed, and they work at Dunkin' Donuts or something.
Just like Quinn.
Yeah, just like these really like neck beard kind of edgelord people that are like that are just like,
you have a really specific idea of these people, Goldar.
He does.
Yeah, you get on Facebook, like you go to like the bottom of the barrel of the comment section for people that are like below 40, that they're usually like those Harley Quinn Joker type people. Those are the people that love Harley Quinn like that much. That DC is like, these people love Harley Quinn. Those are the people that they think like actually really love Harley Quinn. Whereas the rest of us are like, Harley Quinn's great. We enjoy her. She's a fun character, but she can get kind of overused at times. And I think they've been trying to like make her the masthead of the DC universe for like a little bit now, since like they couldn't get Superman or Batman to do it. And
by the way, how the hell do you fail at that? But okay.
And Margot Robbie's done a great job. Like, I think she's fantastic, Harley Quinn. I enjoy seeing her every time she is that character. But now it feels long in the tooth in such a way that Tony Stark or I'm sorry, Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man wasn't. Every time we saw Iron Man, it was a pleasure every time. So we wanted more. And even when he died, we were sad. We were like, "What? We don't get any more Iron Man?" Yep. So, but like with Harley Quinn, it's like, we can do without more movies with Harley Quinn. And even Margot Robbie is like, yeah, I'm kind of done with the character.
well, yeah, Birds of Prey was a terror. Okay, so that's something else you think maybe.
Hang on a second, hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Narwhal had some comments and stuff. So I wanted to. Yeah. Narwhal, go for it, bro. Narwhal, did we lose you?
Oh, I think we've lost him.
I know. It's a hell of a free shot, though. He looks.
I know it is.
There he is. He's back.
There he's back. He's back. No, is he back?
Well, yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'm back.
Okay.
Okay.
And no, you're
not. We lost you again, bro.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but your video's frozen.
Yeah.
Say something.
You want to jump off and jump back on? The link will still work, won't it?
Yeah, he can jump out and jump back in. Narwhal, we lost you, so we're gonna move on. So, Geek Boy, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, hopefully he's jumping back in. But I think that. Do we think that part of the problem was the bad taste of the first Suicide Squad, coupled with I have not seen it, but I've talked to Harley Quinn, like super fans that freaking hate Birds of Prey, you know, and so, oh, he says carry on without me. I think he's done. I think he's done. I'll text him back. But I mean, do you think that might have hurt as well? Was the bad, poor reception of Birds of Prey, and people think, well, hell, we're just getting more of the same stuff, you know?
I still think she was like the best part of Birds of Prey and Suicide Squad.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So if there was really anything, it was like, just, you know, do a little bit more of that. And they kind of did in this film. So it kind of worked out. And it was kind of cool that they took her on a journey to figure out like what she was supposed to do with the javelin, which I thought was kind of amusing. I was like, what is she supposed to do with this javelin? Like, all right, like, let's find out. But I think like at this point, just like Itiki was saying, I think DC really needs to shelve their whole universe right now, especially the main characters, Batman, Superman. They need to sit on the shelf for a while. What they could really do to like bring things kind of back is start off with maybe a more Earth-based kind of serious character, like say Green Arrow. You know, let's start off with Green Arrow, and then let's start introducing slowly more fantastic characters to the universe. So that way, as the audience, you're seeing it through the eyes of Green Arrow, who's this Earth-based character. He just shoots arrows really well, right? Like, he's really good at fighting. He comes across some strange things, but then he starts coming across Superman, or then he comes across Hawkman or Green Lantern, and then you slowly start building this fantastic thing out. So you're starting to witness it from a character that's never seen it, just like we would.
Right.
We're witnessing it with him and experiencing how weird it is, and then building upon that from there, and then move on to like some kind of, you know, massive Earth-based event, like, you know, versus Brainiac, or versus like a Starro, or versus not Apocalypse, but Darkseid.
You know what's really funny about what you're saying, and I believe this represents DC's biggest misstep. Okay, they did this with Arrow, the TV series. Everything you're talking about is the baby steps that they took. They evolved Arrow into the Flash, and then they evolved Flash, I believe, into Supergirl, or was it Legends of Tomorrow? I can't remember which one. But I mean, they did this very slow sprinkling.
It was Arrow that did the Flash, and Arrow also did Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then Arrow was the spin-off for Supergirl with Flash and everything. I mean, like, everything grew from Arrow.
Yeah, and just like
they did a perfect, I'm sorry to interrupt, but they did a perfect build into a Super Friends story.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even think the current Superman and Lois series came from Arrow. Because,
that's right, it did.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So I, I'm glad you guys reminded me of that, because I totally forgot that they did that.
Yeah, and it worked, and it didn't all. I mean, not everything they did work, but still, they had way more hits than misses. And that was Turtle Gal's first red flag with this whole thing is when we found out that someone else was going to play the Flash. It was like, oh boy, this isn't going to work. So anyway, Deadpool had an R rating that made $700 million, but I've heard people say that had Deadpool been PG-13, it could have made $1 billion.
I doubt it. No,
you don't think so?
No, but I think people. Sorry, I would think people know Deadpool, know him from his comic books. You go in with a PG-13 on Deadpool, you would not got the Deadpool, and that was the whole thing that I believe Sony did wrong with Wolverine. He was ferocious, he was bloody, and you did not get that in the movies, and people were let down by the portrayal of Wolverine, not because of Hugh Jackman's portrayal, but because you never got to see the claws do what they are intended to do, is just really jack you up.
Yeah, they neutered him basically.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. They did. And and DC has a very cool character that they could easily do a Deadpool version of and that's Lobo.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, could you imagine, instead of trying to do, we've been talking about what they could do to kind of mimic Marvel, start with a Deadpool and go with Lobo and make him like this huge bounty hunting story that he's tracking down. He's got to go after a Martian Manhunter. He's got to go after someone from the Legion. He gets contracted to go collect Brainiac. I mean, this could be a whole story topic right here where Lobo is your main character, but you're introducing these characters along the way, and the next thing they get their spin-off movie that leads into something else. And so, I mean, I would probably leave. I really think they need to say Brainiac as like the big bad, as their first big bad, kind of like Loki and the Chitauri. And then Darkseid, of course, is your, Darkseid right, kind of like what they did with Zack Snyder. And he would be your Thanos level of Ben.
Yeah.
So.
Well, guys, I think we pretty much run this Guardians, this suicide thing into the ground. I mean, I don't think we've left any stone unturned about it.
So.
Yeah. And we had 2 more topics on the slate, but with the fact that we lost Mr. Narwhal, and I'd really like to have his input on it.
Save it for next week.
I think we're going to save the fact that the challenge it was going to take for No Time to Die to make a profit, and by that time, I also had What If on the roster, but by that time we'll have 2 episodes under the belt. So I think maybe that might give us a better chance to talk about it, unless you guys want to just give your impressions of What If real quick, or we can just go ahead and
I have
sign
not
off.
Watched it. I've not watched
you haven't?
the first episode, so I wanted to watch that with the Queen. So we're going to try to get that.
Then we'll just save that as well. We had a good music corner, and we had really good discussion. Well, thank everybody who's been with us tonight. The Blues Man, Sprout, Bruce Star, the B5 Babe. We've had some new folks in here. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Tune in next week. We're going to talk about some even better topics. And tomorrow night we have a new episode of Sci-Fi Friday. We got new Fanny and flicks dropping, and we also have a new episode of Nightcrawlers coming out. So for Mr. Narwhal, for the Reverend IT Geek, for Mr. Goldar, I am the Geek Boy signing off. Peace.